Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're going to talk about the DM, the Dungeon Master, bullet point problem, Librarian. All right. Apologies. If you don't know what the Dungeon Master bullet point problem is, you got some homework to do. You got to watch the video that is linked in the doobly-doo below. And what that'll do is it'll give you context for this video. Apologies, it's just so I don't have to repeat myself. Thank you. All right, let's talk about this Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Master bullet point problem. You have to learn to be a librarian. And you will not imagine how complicated this is going to be. All right, so the real juice of dungeon mastering happens with books. It starts with books and it ends with books. And you will never get more information about dungeon mastering than books will give you. It is the golden source of information for dungeon mastering, okay? Now, if you're a Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Master, I'm going to explain my library, and I'm not even at the deep. I'm fairly deep. I have a fairly deep library. I have a good, solid, deep library, and I know for a fact there are other people who put my librarian skills, my librarian efforts, my librarian organization to shame with higher complexity, higher execution, and higher quality. But I'm going to tell you what I do just to manage my library, and then just understand that there are people who take this way further than I am going to tell you. It is bonkers nuts how deep this goes, okay? All right, so my library. First of all, I have a traditional library of bookshelves that are just traditional sized tabletop role-playing games, okay? I have my 5th edition hardback books on there. I also have my 1st edition hardback books on there, my 2nd edition hardback books on there, my 3rd edition hardback books on there, my 4th edition hardback books on there. And I am thoroughly convinced all Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition dungeon masters who want to be exceptional have to have the PHB, the MM, and the DMG in hardback for all versions of the game, 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, and 5E. I don't think you really hit stride. You don't really get what needs to be accomplished until you understand the game through those core steps, right? And then in addition to that, I have games like Shadowrun. I have games like 5 Torches Deep. I have games like Torchbearer, all in print, okay? All that are traditional Dungeons & Dragons core sized books, okay? So why do I have all these indie books, right? Well, it's page 4 of the Dungeon Master Guide. It says, of the 5e Dungeon Master Guide, it says, the rules are not in charge, you are, right? So if you're really gonna be exceptional at being a dungeon master, you need to master bringing ideas, rule sets, NPC flourishes, all kinds of different material. You want to steal the best from other tabletop role-playing games to make your 5e game stand out from good dungeon. I compete with good 5th edition dungeon masters, right? And I don't want to be good. I want to be great, and I want to be the best, and I don't want anyone in my area to steal my physical players. I want it to be known that I have a premium. I want it to be known when it comes to D&D 5e in our area, I'm peak DM, period. And you don't get there if you don't mix in ideas from other tabletop role-playing games and make your D&D 5e game as tight as possible. That's just my bookshelves for D&D 5e for books that are the same size as a D&D 5e book, hardback, and all the editions of Dungeons & Dragons and all the indie games. I have another bookshelf just for box sets, and then I have another organization system just for off-size tabletop role-playing games. I own about 200 distinct, individual, freestanding tabletop role-playing games, and I have 2 different bookshelf systems one for traditional size tabletop role-playing games, one for box sets, and one for off-size tabletop role-playing games. It's bonkers, right? That's just the physical stuff, okay? In addition to that, I have distinct repositories on DriveThruRPG, Itch.io, right? Humble Bundle, okay? And on Paizo. 4 different distinct electronic repositories, all that have purchased, free stuff I've purchased, and stuff that was free on it. It is outrageously complicated and crazy how extensive my library is. It has hundreds of tabletop role-playing games, right? And it spans the digital space and it spans the physical space. It is immensely complicated. It has to be maintained. And even beyond that, there's even a value issue where I have 4 kids and a beautiful wife, right? If anything I own reaches 100% value over what I purchased it for, I generally sell it, right? So I've definitely had like, I'd probably say a dozen, maybe 2 dozen games where over the years, I'll have them for 10, 15 years. Sometimes the values will go 200 to 300% over what I paid for them, and I'll sell them, right? There's a few that I keep. I'll give you some examples. I own the Marvel Saga game in perfect condition with all of the cards, right? That's probably my most valuable game, right? And that one has definitely gone way over 300% of what I originally paid for because I bought it off the shelf, right? And I have, I've actually cordoned that thing off. It's in its own container, and actually, I don't even keep that thing in my house anymore. Like we got a safety deposit for that. So it's great. Like, it's nuts. Like, you even have to start thinking about values on stuff and think, oh my gosh, did this thing I bought that's in good condition, is it now worth 200, 300, 400% of what I purchased for? And should I sell it, right? If you have a serious collection, right? It is incredibly complicated to actually get the right mix of physical and digital library material, keep it maintained, keep it organized. And in order to do it, you essentially are mastering the discipline of librarian, right? And there's no question, there are thousands of people who dedicate their entire lives to mastering being a librarian. And for us, it's just a bullet point, because when you sign on to be a dungeon master, you are forfeiting if you commit to it, you are forfeiting your space as a normal human being, right? You are saying what others would dedicate an entire lifetime to master even a single discipline will be but a mere bullet point for me. I must stretch my emotional, my spiritual, my intellectual state in order to find a path to mastery of many disciplines that others would struggle to master even one. Right? It is astoundingly complex, right? And so, it's D&D it's not a game, it's a life path. Like, it's so clear, right? Just open your eyes and see the complexity of what an actual call to be a dungeon master actually is. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What is your library milieu like? What are the tasks you do? Is your library more or less complex than my tabletop role-playing game library? Have you dealt with this struggle of, do I keep this because it's worth 400% of what I purchased it for, or do I sell it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.